The X-Men 97 series is one of the best things that Marvel has done in a while, and even though I haven't seen every single episode of the original show, I still have seen enough to know that this is a great continuation of that. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts, both positive and negative, on the first two episodes of X-Men 97, and once this whole first season wraps up, I will probably revisit this and do an even bigger review covering the whole entire season. But without further ado, let's talk about these first two episodes of X-Men 97. So as I said, this show is a continuation of the original, and it pretty much picks up right where the original left off. And now we have the X-Men who are trying to navigate things without Professor X by their side. Jumping right into the positives, and the first thing I have here is that this show looks and feels the same way as the original did, and that just made this thing feel so nostalgic for me. And this really all starts right there in the beginning when they pretty much do a shot-for-shot remake of the intro of the show, and then you hear that classic X-Men theme, and it really just felt like I was sitting in front of the TV on Saturday mornings again. All the characters are voiced by the exact same voice actors, and they even kind of reference it during the show with Jean Grey and Cyclops talking, and Jean Grey kind of says, "Oh, you sound the same as you did back then." So I really enjoyed that part of the first episode. But yeah, the only thing that is truly different here is the animation, and it's different in the way that they just enhanced it and made it better than it already was. Next, for the positives, is I just love the overall mature tone of this show. They tackled some really tough themes in these first two episodes, and they did it really well, especially in the second episode with the whole Magneto trial, and they had a group of people rush into a government building, which I don't know if it's just me, but that kind of sounds familiar. Anyways, the X-Men have always been an allegory for civil rights and how minority groups are treated in America. I mean, Professor X and Magneto are literally Malcolm X and MLK. But they execute these themes beautifully, especially with Magneto's speech at the end of episode 2 where he pulls those government officials up into space. I thought that was one of the coolest parts out of these first two episodes. And even though this is a cartoon, I don't feel like it was made for kids. It feels like it was made for the adults who used to watch this show as kids, and I appreciate that. Next, for the positives, I have the characters, more specifically how they wrote each of these characters. Now, as I said before, each of these characters were voiced by their original voice actors, which was super cool. But the thing I really like about X-Men 97 is we got to explore the dynamic of each character and how they interact with one another. Just in these first two episodes, we have gotten to know each of the X-Men and a little bit about them, and there are so many storylines that are being set up with each character, really, and that's just gonna make this show so fun to watch down the road to see kind of how everything turns out. I mean, I think Storm is going to have a super cool character arc, even though I don't necessarily like that they had her lose her powers this early in the show, but I will talk about that in just a second. And on top of that, we have everything going on with Cyclops and Jean Grey, who just had a baby named Nate Summers, who will eventually become Cable, which is just super awesome to know that he is going to be in this show. But we also now technically have two Jean Greys, and I won't spoil what's going to happen with that, but just know we're headed down a really cool road with that storyline. But with that said, in my opinion, the most interesting character in this whole show so far has to be Magneto for me. I mean, in these first two episodes, we saw how layered of a character he is and is going to be throughout this show, and I'm just super excited to see where they take his character. And he's got a thing with Rogue, so we'll see where that goes as well. But yeah, the writing of these characters is one of the strongest parts of the show, and it's gonna make me want to watch more and more of this thing. And lastly, for the positives, and I just have to add this on, and this goes without saying, but the action in this was absolutely phenomenal. I loved how they showed everyone's powers, especially Cyclops. I mean, he was just that guy in this show. And it all started in the first episode when he was using his concussive blast to move around the area. I thought that was super cool. And then later in this same episode, he had probably one of the coolest superhero landings that I have ever seen. The updated animation, which was just phenomenal by the way, really showed during these action scenes, and I loved how they kind of used this animation to visualize some of the X-Men's powers. Whether it was Magneto using his magnetism powers, or the way they showed Bishop absorbing energy and shooting it back out, or something as simple as just showing a little wind around Storm as she uses her powers. I mean, this animation really gave them the freedom to do whatever they want, and that truly is the beauty of animation. You can really do whatever you want want without worrying about suspension of disbelief, because at the end of the day, this is a superhero animated TV show. Anything can really happen. Moving on to the negatives now, there wasn't much that I disliked in this show, but if I'm being honest, as I said before, I wasn't a big fan of how they took away Storm's powers this early in the show. Now look, I understand that this is something that happens in the comics, and I'm all for sticking to the source material. I just wish they would have stuck to the source material a little later in the show, because Storm was absolutely killing it in these first 2 episodes, and I would just wanted to see her use her powers more before they took them away. I mean, her entrance when they were fighting the Sentinels in episode 1 was probably one of my favorite parts out of these first 2 episodes. So yes, it was a little disappointing to see them take away her powers in episode 2, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. I know this is going to take us on a super cool ride with her character, and I'm here for it. But yeah, overall, this show is dang near perfect. It's a great continuation of the original with improved animation. The action is just awesome, but the characters and storyline are what make this show so good. And I hope that X-Men 97 is here to stay for multiple seasons. Those are my thoughts on the first couple episodes of X-Men 97. Be sure to let me know what you thought of these episodes down in the comments. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.